Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. We appreciate you being here with us. I am Roseanne Scammahorn, and I am presenting with Misty Harmon. We are both family consumer science educators for Ohio State University Extension, and we have fellow FCS Extension educator Kelly Limley. She'll be helping us with all of our IT stuff in the background. So a special thank you to Kelly for serving in that role so that Misty and I can kind of just be the presenter today. So thank you, Kelly. And thank you, everybody who came today.
Yes, thanks, everybody. As Roseanne said, I'm Misty Harmon. And Roseanne and I, as you can see there, the stars indicate where we are. She's over on the western edge of the state, and I'm in the southeast region. So when, we both partner with local courts. She's in Darke County and I'm in Perry County. So if you hear us referring back and forth, that's kind of the areas we are in. We both partner with local courts to provide classes to address wellness across the lifespan, specifically in the area of parenting, co-parenting, substance use prevention, and life skills. And these are all taught as part of the overall holistic wellness initiatives in our counties. And they were also deemed essential programming. So when the pandemic first started, our state shut down, but through our governor's office, Ohio State was allowed to continue to do some essential programming. And these were some of the essential programs we were permitted to continue. So as we pivoted our teaching practices with very short notice, as I'm sure many of you did the same thing, a host of complications arose. From the basics of internet access and compatible devices, to engaging with participants, to verifying participants' identity and meeting the needs of mandated participants during the pandemic really pushed educators out of our comfort zone. And so in many cases, we pivoted our normal day-to-day routines and that rapid transition to online education. And for established higher ed communities, that was fairly easy. Many of them are already doing that, have things set up in place. So, at OSU main campus, they have lots of things. So it was a pretty seamless transition. For some of us in extension, not quite as versed in that virtual learning, it was a little bit more of a scramble for us to implement and deliver some version of the classes in an online format. All the while during that, kind of frantic time, we were trying to meet the court mandates, keep those relationships going, meet those educational objectives, meet our community needs and the needs of our families, right? In this uncertain time and everything that was up in the air at the time, we didn't know what was going to happen. The story looked a lot different though for our community members. The transition from that in-person to virtual learning was foreign and overwhelming. Many of them didn't have the resources or the infrastructure to successfully transition in such a short time. So, imagine what we were going through, folks who aren't necessarily that versed, it was even more difficult. So one of the main challenges in Ohio, and I'm sure we are not unique in this, as many states, and especially rural areas, have challenges with internet access.
Hey, Misty, yeah, you're being muffled again.
I don't. Is that any better?
No.
Well, Roseanne, do you want to take over and I'll try to figure out? I'm sorry. I don't know what else to do.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
So like Misty was saying, it's not uncommon in many of our areas that, internet access is just not the best. So in my county, only 82% of my population had internet access at home. And in Misty's county, 80% of the population had internet. So if you look on these pictures, the dark orange areas on these maps indicate those who have at least 1 megabit per second. And the yellow areas indicate about 50 megabits per second. And so on average, my county residents had about 12 to 15 megabits at the best type situation. And Perry County residents, they had about 15 megabits per second. And so for those of you who are like me, who are not so DSL savvy, 8 to 12 megabits is considered usually TV quality. 17 megabits is what is recommended for a small household who uses the internet for browsing or downloading small files. But the actual upload and download speeds are rarely at those peak amounts in our communities. So in most cases, they fluctuated between 50 to 80% of that promised bandwidth. So with Darke County being at 12 to 18, if we were operating at 50%, we're at 6 to 9, which isn't even enough to watch a television show. So it kind of gives you an idea of what we were up against with that.
Yeah, and for Perry County, it'd be about 12. Is that any better?
Perfect.
All right, so I will, and it's Roseanne, you're up.
It's me. So with our court mandated classes, it was necessary for me to identify the identification of my participants. Many of the individuals that were assigned to my classes are people that you necessarily not have met in person before. So to verify identity during my virtual sessions, I had to become really creative. And fortunately, for several of the classes that I teach with the courts, I was able to have a parole officer sign in and verify identity for me. However, when that was not possible, I reached out to the courts for the participants' personal information and their mug shots. It sounds very morbid, I know. But when the participants logged on, then I was able to use that mug shot and compare it to their picture. And then I was also asked them to use the chat feature to privately send me their name and address that was on file with their court records. And then if they had trouble with the chat feature, my backup plan was I asked them to share their full name and the last 4 numbers of their court case numbers, because all of that information is public information. So I wasn't violating any parts of personal information disclosure. But I just found it was really difficult to keep a mandated participant engaged when we were face-to-face, because they had to be there. They didn't want to be there. And it became even so more of a challenge when we were delivering it via online platforms. So for me to help maintain engagement, I required cameras to be on at all times. This helped the participants be held accountable for being present in the classroom. Same as if we were face-to-face, they could see me and I could see them at all times. So I primarily work with recurring audiences who are required to attend sessions for several weeks up to months. So I have the opportunity to build relationships with them over that period of time. They are also able to build relationships with one another if they wanted to. And I found that that was really vital to making sure that the classes were fully attended and that they were active participants. During our state shutdown, not everybody was comfortable with that larger online class platform. So for those who needed a little bit more assistance getting comfortable with our online platform, I set up one-on-one online meetings where they could ask questions and play with all those online features. And then this just gave them, free time to explore and get comfortable with that online platform. And I found that just by opening up that opportunity, it really broke down a lot of barriers to class participation, because then once we were back in our groups with everybody there, they were much more at ease. So establishing those virtual office hours created a platform for additional opportunities, one for me and one of my participants to communicate, but also for them to find a way to problem solve if they had any questions or concerns versus having to do it in front of all the group. I made sure that we had clear and frequent communications with all of my participants. This was a key factor in setting the expectations moving forward and reaffirming the relationships that we had started when we were in the classroom together. So using an online platform such as Microsoft Teams, Skype, or Zoom, it can be challenging to maintain genuine interactions with each participant. And we've been doing Zoom enough, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So I tried to make this a little bit easier on folks by keeping my classroom sizes to about 10 to 12 participants when possible. That way I was able to connect with each person with actions like smiling into the camera, making direct eye contact with the camera, and then just having those social conversations that are so vital to establishing good, healthy relationships. And then with the new learning environment came a whole new set of rules and expectations. So to help set the tone for the new online learning platform, I had the group create their rules and expectations and how the group would function and how they wanted the class to flow. Because I had this buy-in from the beginning, it made it so much easier with classroom management. I really was completely hands-off when it came to that. The participants really just monitored their own behaviors and called each other out when they weren't following the online classroom rules. So it worked out really well. Another thing that we did for setting the stage for success is individuals typically enjoy learning when they're having fun doing so. So we tried to foster environments where it was safe to take risks, as well as have fun in the learning process, and just help to promote creativity and engaging learning atmospheres. So I found if a class was really heavy on the lecture side for that week, I would break the material up into shorter and more frequent class sessions because it was a lot easier to hold their attention for 30 minutes, 3 times a week than it was to try to do one big 90-minute session one time a week and then lose them 30 minutes into that class and wasting an hour. So when we were face-to-face, you know, we communicate a lot using our senses and our listening to body language, our tone, our inflection, and so on. So, you know, something like a simple nod conveys a lot of communication between parties. With online sessions, we tend to over-exaggerate all of those things and add things like, you know, a thumbs up or a thumbs down. And then we incorporate emojis, and we're all trying to fit that into our little camera window. And if you've got a virtual background on, you know, body parts disappear. So, you know, we're trying to do all of that, and it just becomes exhausting and overwhelming. So breaking the material up, one, helps with, you know, learners fatigue, but it also helps with the fatigue of us presenters who are trying to make it engaging and interactive. So smaller sessions worked out really well. And then to help ease my participants' mind, I emailed them once a week to remind them of upcoming dates, times, links, and expectations for the next class. Each week, I also sent out an email of what would stay the same for that week and what needed to be changed and why. Because I didn't want anybody to feel overwhelmed or become panicky if there was a change happening and they just didn't understand why it had to happen. This just helped clarify a lot of the miscommunications that were happening early on and helped keep all of us on track on what to expect for the past class and the upcoming class. So as I transitioned into the online world, I started out by reviewing some of the lessons from when we were face-to-face prior to the pandemic, rather than introducing completely new material during every session. One, this helped us serve as a refresher for all of us, but it also gave us a little bit of a mental break because it wasn't all new content all of the time while trying to learn how to function in an online atmosphere. I encouraged my participants to exchange email addresses and phone numbers. By doing this just created a larger network of contacts for each participant to reach out to for assistance, so they weren't 100% reliant on me, especially if they were struggling in between class sessions. And then rather than assume that each participant had a classroom supply at home, because in my community that was unlikely the case, I created supply kits with pens and highlighters and blank paper and worksheets. And this provided each participant with tangible items to place in their 3-ring binders during each session. So not only were the participants at home, so were their kids. We've all seen the kids and the animals and the family members walking across in the background. So I tried to create activities for the entire family. So that way it allowed the participants to incorporate those individuals and sometimes their pets, rather than feel like they were in the way and being disruptive.
All right. And I work with an audience. Whoops, I think it jumped ahead. There we go. Sometimes my thing lags behind. I primarily work with audiences who are mandated to be there at one time. So unlike Roseanne, I only have my participants for one class, and generally these are parenting classes. So I don't have that time necessarily to build that relationship with them. They don't have time to build the relationship with each other. So these are, you know, it's a little bit more of a challenge in a different way than what Roseanne had. So the first time she was kind of telling me about this, I was like, wow, these are a lot of things I hadn't thought of since I only see my participants once. So the things that helped make my program successful while we were virtual is making sure that we had clear communication with the participants right from the get-go. So when we first went virtual, I have been teaching successful co-parenting and principles of parenting in person. The successful co-parenting could not be done online, like virtually. They have to do an online platform. So communicating this up front to the court and then also with the participants, what they need to do and what's going to happen with them. they get a letter from the court basically informing them to contact my office. And when they contact our office, then we explain to them the process. We explain what they needed to do. And we told them, exactly my email, my phone number, so that they could contact me and not get lost in the shuffle. We were all working from home, so we were all in different locations. Luckily, OSU does have Skype phones, so we were able to transfer calls seamlessly. They could still call our office number and it would ring right to our computers. So that was at least a good thing that we had that set up pre-pandemic. So those participants were able to still get a hold of us during regular business hours, and it was a seamless thing for them. They didn't realize we were working from our homes, so that was a good thing. And then follow-up communication with those participants once the class was over, letting them know what would happen, what they could expect, when they would hear back from me, when I would send the letter to the court, all of those things. And then really key to me, for me, was communication with the court. The court is my primary relationship. They are the ones who, refer those participants to my programs. So I really wanted to make it clear in the very beginning to the court exactly what was going on, exactly what we would be able to do, and when we would be able to accomplish these things so that they could continue to hear cases and all of that when it was okay for them. So really that communication with the court was key for me because they are my first relationship. They are the ones who are sending these participants. And so I wanted to make sure they knew exactly what they could expect from us, exactly what we were going to be doing on our end to ensure that these participants were still getting the information, and exactly how we would communicate to them that these participants did indeed complete, the program as they were supposed to. So that was really, a big part of my, my online was communicating with them. And so the successful co-parenting, OSU had already developed an online platform using Carmen Canvas. So that was pretty easy just to roll that on over and to start having participants register for that online program. With that online program, you can go in and see how long a participant engaged with any particular part of that platform. So our successful co-parenting has 4 modules. I could go on there and see how long did that participant spend on each module, and then how long did they spend total on the platform. They didn't have to do it all in one continuous time. They could jump on and off as they needed to, but I could follow that. And there were times when, based on what they were saying and the time on the platform, I could tell that they had not completed the material successfully. So I had to inform them that they needed to go back on and do that. And when I emailed them, I copied the court. So the court knew I am watching. I am doing everything I can on my end to ensure that these participants are completing the program. And here is proof, right? I'm looking at their times, I'm looking at their responses. And so that happened a few times. And, that I think helped to continue that relationship and continue that trust that the court had in us, OSU Extension, that we were going to continue to do what we could to ensure those participants were getting that material. Another key was communicating with the office. Our office is,
Misty, yeah. It's sounding muffled again. It's like static or something.
Literally done nothing.
It's working now. I guess I just had to interrupt you. Sorry.
Okay. Another key was communicating with my office associate, since she's the one who sends the letters to our court once our participants have completed the program. She sends a letter to the court. She also sends it to the clerk of courts so that they know. But she is also the only one who can see the financial end of the seeing whether that participant has paid or not. So communication between she and I was critical in making sure that the participant had paid, and then that she sent me their information so I could send them the link and all of that. So there was a lot of communication back and forth between she and I to make sure that we weren't missing any participants, that all the participants were getting the links that they needed. And if they paid, they were getting, all of that done. And then again, that follow up with the participants once class was over, or once they had completed that successful co-parenting online program, letting them know that we would, be issuing them their certificate. And we did that virtual, though they had the option. We would mail them a certificate if they needed that physical certificate and didn't have the ability to print it off. And we also sent that to the court as well. So they had that copy. But our participants are required to show a physical copy when they go to court, though most of them were doing virtual court. So they didn't really have to do that during this time. And then, the post-program surveys, the Successful Co-Parenting has a survey built into it, but I just made up a little one for my other parenting class. The other parenting class I teach is for adults who are seeking custody of minor children in our county. And so these could be grandparents, they could be biological parents, they could be some other relative. They might not be related at all to the child. And so that's already a stressful situation. And so I did not require that they keep their cameras on the entire time for that program because, it's already a stressful situation. Now we have these kids at home because they weren't in school because our schools were all shut down as well. So any of them that might have been school age would be home as well. So I didn't require them to have their cameras on, but I did require them to engage in the chat with reactions or to unmute and offer to the conversation so that I knew they were still on there. And if I hadn't heard from somebody in a little bit, I would not call them out because I would never do that, especially with a mandated audience. But I would say, I haven't heard from some of you. Could you, type something in the chat or unmute and, answer this question or give an example or something like that so as to make sure that they were still there, but yet allow them to be comfortable in their home. Many of them may not necessarily have the best home living situation. So again, that was kind of, and I don't have the time to build that relationship like Roseanne does. So I didn't want to make them uncomfortable. Also, one of the things was always setting the stage at the beginning of the class that they're the experts. I'm not the expert in your kids. You are the expert. So always kind of reminding them that I'm just here to give them some tips and tricks that they might use, to address some of the behaviors that they might see with their kids, but they are really the experts and they can pick and choose which parts of this that are going to be relevant to their situation. So that always kind of helped too, reminding them, and letting them know that I'm not here as the expert. You are the expert in your child. I am just here to give you some strategies to use with helping to manage behavior and, do some changes. And that always did kind of lower than that kind of resistance that, you can tell when they log on, they don't want to be there. And so, but our participants did indicate that they were satisfied. And in fact, they enjoyed, the online and that flexibility that even though we are back in person, I continue to teach that class virtually every other month. So 1 month I do it in person, 1 month I do it virtual to allow that flexibility, because again, some of these are the grandparents seeking custody of these young children and they don't have anybody to leave those children with. They are the one who would have been babysitting or watching those kids. But, so they don't necessarily have anybody to leave them with to come to an in-person class. So this is that it offers a good flexibility. And then there are people who prefer to be in class. And so they can do that as well, because they generally know this a couple months ahead. So they can choose which one they decide to participate in. And it's worked out really well. Again, they all seem to, some will be like, oh, no, I want to wait till next month when she does it in person. And then other ones will be like, no, I want to do it in online. I don't want to have to miss work to drive and all of that. So it's really a good kind of mix, and it helps meet all those needs of the different people that might be calling in. So some of the different platforms, and you all hopefully are already aware of many of these, but Zoom is one. OSU already had a Zoom, account. And so it was pretty easy for us to just transition right onto that. Some of your universities may use other platforms, and that is fine as well. But Zoom, is a kind of seamless platform that brings together remote and in-person teams. So you can do both, obviously, which you all probably already know. Brightspace Core is more than just a learning management system. It combines powerful tools, services, and support you need to deliver, teaching and learning experience for faculty and students, all in one convenient package. Moodle, some of these were new to me. Like I had heard of Brightspace, but I wasn't really sure what that was. So Moodle is another learning platform designed to provide educators, administrators, and learners with a single, secure and integrated system to create personalized learning environments. I feel like I'm not doing an infomercial. And then Bongo uses structured video workflows to facilitate repeated skill practice. peer-to-peer collaboration, so they can work together, and then also knowledge and application within real-world context. And then, of course, Teams. Most of us, if you have any kind of Microsoft, programs, you have Teams as part of that. And so that's really convenient, and you can invite people who are not as part of your organization to those as well. My husband works for Nationwide Insurance here in Columbus, and their whole entire company has never used anything but Teams during the entire pandemic. That is all they ever use, solely is Teams. Skype, of course, a lot of people were using Skype before the pandemic to, video phone relatives and things like that before Zoom kind of became more popular. So a lot of people were already familiar with this because it's been around for a long time. So, with some participants, if they weren't real comfortable, that might have been a good one. Nearpod. And this is a real-time insights into student understanding. And we're going to practice here in just a minute. So let me get through these last couple. Again, real-time insights into student understanding through interactive lessons, videos, gamification, and activities, and then Kahoot. And we were using Kahoot when we were in person to do like food safety and things like that. So, this is one of those ones that some of you may have already been using, but certainly it can also be applied to that virtual. So now I'm going to turn it back over to Roseanne, and we're going to practice.
Yep. Now it's time to play. So Kelly's going to drop in the chat box the www.menti.com. Go out to that website for us. And you're going to type in the code 7084-5240. And our question of the day is, what is your favorite ice cream flavor? So go ahead and go out to menti.com, type in the code, and then I actually made it to where you can do your top 5 if you would like. If you just can't choose between, Superman or, my personal favorite is anything that's got cookie dough in it. So
you and my son would get along. You want me to stop sharing so you can?
Yeah, and then I'll share my screen and we'll show you what this looks like in real time.
Is that yours, Roseanne? Did you put in cookies and cream?
Not mine.
Okay.
Ooh.
Lake Erie Salt Mine. What's Lake Erie Salt Mine? Somebody's going to have to unmute when we get this done and tell me what that is.
So this one was always a fan favorite when I would teach because, I would give them, a few chances to type in multiple answers. And so if they're, whatever, like for this example, for their favorite ice cream, if their ice cream was not the most predominant one, they would type it in a couple more times to just make sure it got bigger, to make sure I wasn't messing with them. This is really how this works. So we've got a few peppermint fans. It is that time of year. I don't see anything with, I'm
liking the bourbon butter
pumpkin
pecan
spice.
there. Oh, I'm pumpkin spice. Pistachio. So who did the Lake Erie Salt Mine? What is that?
Yes, please share with us. Tell us more.
That was me, Chris from Ohio.
Ah, Chris.
Makes sense. It's Ohio, right? Lake Erie Salt Mine. So
Yeah.
it's delightful. It's like a caramel ice cream, and then it has cashews in it. And I just had it yesterday. Why can't I think of like everything that's in it? But it's really delightful.
It sounds like you need to bring some of that to the next in-person meeting we have, Chris. That's all I'm saying. Just
I'll see what I can do.
Chris is from Ohio, by the way, for those of you who might have missed that.
So now we're going to play another game. This one is a Nearpod game. And so again, Kelly's going to go ahead and put that in the chat box, the link and the code.
Yeah, and I'll just let her do that. I won't pull mine back up so you can just share yours. So
perfect. So it'll be join.nearpod.com. And then our code is MCBF and then the number 6. So go out to joinnearpod.com, MCBF6, and we're going to climb the Himalayas today. So if you can give me a thumbs up if you are in, because I see, ooh, Mackenzie, I see you're in. Thank you.
You don't have to enter your name. You can make up a name if you want. You can put your initials or be some alias. It's just for fun.
Again, that is joinnearpod.com, and the code is MCBF and then the number 6.
It's join.nearpod.com if you missed that dot in between the join and Nearpod.
And Kelly, if you want to drop that back into the chat box again, we had a couple people join us, so they wouldn't be able to see that. Thanks, Kelly.
Welcome.
We'll give you just a few more seconds to go ahead and get entered into the game. All right, I'm going to go ahead and launch the game. I will share my screen. My screen isn't as fun as other people's screen, but if you didn't enter, then you don't get the full experience. So let me go ahead and just share that so y'all can at least see what other folks are kind of seeing, or at least see it from my end. All right, so let's start the game.
And the participants are actually seeing choices, by the way, for those of you who aren't necessarily in the game, they're actually seeing 4 choices to the question. What body part do you use to smell? Tamara, I'm not sure why your name's not up there. Maybe you got in after she started it. And you can change the theme of this because the last time Roseanne and I did this, she had a Halloween theme. So obviously Halloween has since passed, so there you are.
There she is.
Yep.
Yay! So Nearpod is it's just a fun little game. They have tons of things. This is just the mountain climber one, but there are tons of them out there for folks. You can create them on your own. You can choose from They've got thousands of them in their database. One of my personal favorites that I would create is the matching game. Do you guys remember that from when you were little, where you flip one card over and you got to find the other one that matches it, and then it would take those 2 cards away from the game? So matching game was a really fun one to play on there. But if you haven't been out to Nearpod, that's just one that's just, it's like Kahoots. It's really just fun and interactive and a great way to get people moving in the classroom. So the other thing is Zoom. Most of us use Zoom, so we want to make sure that we use Zoom to the best of our abilities. One of them is to cultivate small group discussions by using your breakout room option. This allows for more intimate conversations with one person from the group, then coming back and reporting for that entire breakout room versus having to have people talk over each other or not talk at all. So with my groups, rather than randomizing the breakout rooms, I found that participants who were grouped with people that they already had an established relationship with, they were more likely to participate and speak up in the breakout rooms. If I wasn't able to do this, I would allow additional time in the breakout room for kind of like icebreaker kind of things, allow them to do introductions. And then I would provide them with the questions that they needed to answer for that specific room because they didn't already have that intimate relationship connected with each other. And then to make sure that the breakout rooms are on track, because again, mine were mandated folks, so they didn't always want to answer the questions. I would room hop to just touch base with each group and give them the opportunity to ask me any clarifying questions or concerns that they had. And this does significantly increase the amount of time that you need in the breakout room. It decreases the pace of the class. So you will have to adjust your time to adapt for what you need to make sure that your breakout rooms are successful. The other thing I did is I love doing polling. So Kelly, can you launch a poll for us? So our question is, which US president made turkey pardoning an annual event? Was it George H.W. Bush, John F. Kennedy, Harry S. Truman, or Abraham Lincoln?
See who's up on their turkey trivia.
Yeah, I know.
And if you're not, I'm going to give you the answer so you can be the cool person at Thanksgiving who has this trivia.
Yeah, you can ask at Thanksgiving.
All right, so we'll go ahead and end that poll and share the results with everybody. So it looks like George H.W. Bush, 27%. Nobody thought JFK. Nobody thought Abraham Lincoln. And the majority thought Harry S. Truman. So Abraham Lincoln, he made Thanksgiving a permanent national holiday. So that's why he's on our list. John F. Kennedy, he was the first president to pardon a turkey. So that's why he was on my list. Harry S. Truman, he was the first president to receive a ceremonial Thanksgiving turkey. So he received a ceremonial Thanksgiving turkey, but it was George H.W. Bush who made turkey pardoning the annual event that it is today. So thanks everybody for participating in our little trivia pool there. Hope you found that as enticing and entertaining as I did. I just love silly things like that. So, all right. The other thing that I use a lot of is the annotate feature. So we're going to use our annotate feature together today. So if you are not familiar with your annotate feature is, go ahead and just move your mouse around the screen. And then at the very top, usually you'll see a button that says view options. Click on view options. Mine is the third one down, it says annotate. A whole other bar now has popped up onto my screen. I want you guys to choose the stamp, the one with the check mark. Highlight that, and now wherever you click on the screen, you are now going to place a check mark. Mackenzie, you have a hand raised.
Sorry, clicking wrong buttons.
That's okay. So what I usually do with the annotate feature is I will put a list of items. This is usually how I do my post surveys. And I'll be like, put a check mark in something new that you learned, or put a check mark in next to something that you're going to incorporate. So again, if you're looking for that annotate feature, if you scroll your mouse around at the very top, you'll see a black button that says view options. Click on that one. Third one down is annotate. click on that, and then a whole new menu of buttons will appear, and you can click on stamp, and you can choose the arrow, the check mark, the X, a star, a heart. You can type text, you can draw if you would like. So you can get really creative when it comes to this. I love
It's very festive now.
Yep.
Yes.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and clear all the drawings off of here.
Okay, Tamara, did you find it? I think she was asking where it was at.
Yeah.
Oh, no, but I'm technology challenged anyway, so no.
Okay.
Roseanne can stay on and help you. You know, we
Yeah.
can go on and she'll help
Yeah.
you find that.
So, and then the other thing I will incorporate is the reactions button. So on your screen in your lower right-hand corner is usually a smiley face with a little plus sign above it that says reactions. I want everybody to click on that one, and I want you to choose the party popper to celebrate all of the great achievements that you have made so far during our NEAFCS conference, all those new tips and tools and tricks that you have learned and are going to engage in and take home with you. Wonderful. I love seeing all the party poppers. It just makes me happy.
And Roseanne, they said someone wrote, Mackenzie wrote, annotate options are limited on phones.
That is true. That is true. It depends on what they have and what they have access to. So yeah. So they don't always work 100%, but it is something to try to incorporate. One thing that during this time we're all living life from home. So, we need to incorporate some things that, takes into account, our environment. So I incorporated show and tell day, just like we had in elementary school. So this gave participants time to show off a bit of their personal life with the group. So some shared the screen with their pets, some shared it with their children, others, like this is a food pillow collection. I didn't know that was a thing. But every week she would show us her next food pillow that came from Amazon. And this just helped us to kind of normalize this irrational, non-normal situation that we were thrust into. It helped us to create closer bonds and relationships with one another. And then it also helped us commiserate when life was just hectic. So when that cat walked across the keyboard or what have you, we've all been there. We've all seen it and we've all had it happen to us. So it's all okay. And then beyond the classroom, we implemented field day on Fridays to help offset cabin fever. So each Friday, the mandatory reporting groups would meet in our local city park where they were divided into two groups, the runner group and the walker group. I was a walker group. I'm never going to run. And we spent 45 minutes walking or running the trails around our local parks. Research shows that moderate intensity type workouts can help with one's ability to recall, associative learning. It increases your brain's ability to absorb and retain information. And it also just helps with our mood. So after our 45-minute workout, we sat in one of the picnic shelters and then conducted our workshop. So this gave the group time out of their homes in the fresh air. We're incorporating exercise and movement. We're creating face-to-face bonds with our classmates, but we're still reaching our learning objectives. And this was so popular during our online virtual classroom time that we now do this continuously. And every Friday is walk in the park day for all of our mandated groups. And it's one of the best things that we have ever done.
So mandated classes create opportunity for educators to plant seeds in those who might otherwise never attend our classes, right? I'm sure many of you have reached audiences you never thought you could. So many of our participants come in with the mindset that they have to be there, right? And they're just there putting in their time. They come in thinking it's like being in a long, boring, exhausting, and pointless. But, if we use some of these things, the techniques we highlighted, we use some of the technology that we have available to us, we can mitigate some of those negative thoughts and impact our participants in a good way and reach them and be able to continue meeting the needs and the challenges that we're faced with. And again, the opportunities instead of looking at the challenges is good. And that's our information. If you want the references, I can put those up there. But
And I see we're right at 2 o'clock. So
and Tamara found the annotate. Delayed but not denied. I love it, Tamara. Keep going
Yes.
until you find those buttons, right? Persevere.
So we'll stay on for anybody who has any questions or comments, anything that you need help with. We'll stay on and play with you for a while if you would like. Other than that, everybody have a wonderful day. And it was great to see everybody's lovely faces.